We will learn today that how modularization works in Java and the massive change that happens in JDK 9. So the title is Working Through Modularity, and I am Vaibhav. I work in Java Platforms team, currently working in JVM. And this block is not so active, okay, because I am not populating much material, but it has a lot of old stuff which is still quite useful. So mostly I put generally related to JVM things. Okay, so you can see the copyright of this presentation is 2017. I have not changed anything. Just I have added few slides. Safe harbor statement is from the Oracle, which say that just listen to this guy, don't take any business decision by listening in. Okay, so always consult the marketing department. Okay, so we will see that what is Project Jigsaw, and Jigsaw, as you know, the Jigsaw puzzle is all about modularity. You have different pieces, and when you fit all the pieces properly, then you will probably see the images. Okay, so it's a very famous game in the kids and even for the elders. We will also see that how the accessibility and readability change and what are the meaning of this. What are the different module system that can help you into the migration plan, and then few of the final thoughts like what we can do with our application. So what is modularity? We all are very well aware of modularity, but still it is like my sole duty to explain you what is modularity. So basically how you can connect and disconnect a system, right? That gives you the power of modularity. So if your complete system can be broken down into several pieces very easily, then you can say that, okay, my system need to be modular. And why it is required? Because I mean, it's a requirement of a team now, right? So if 100 people are working, and you cannot keep telling like all the 100 people to keep screwing the same bolt, right? So you want a different modular system where all teams are independent, and what we are expecting from a team that, okay, you tell me your inputs and outputs. I don't care that how you are going to get that output. So team 2 needs the input from team 1 as a output, right? So team 1 says that, okay, I will give you these values. You just take those values and then you can proceed further, right? So this is the part of modular system, right? And even in the normal life, the modular system works very well, right? So people who have much modular system, like they wake up, they run for 1 hour, they do their daily work for half an hour, they will have breakfast for 30 minutes. They are living much healthier life. Generally, you can see the military people, and their system will be much modular, okay? Whereas a lot of us will not have so much a modular system, and we keep doing a lot of mess ups with the work, right? So success story is there in the life also. This definition is very important for having a good module system. So module system will have a hidden implementation detail. Very important, right? Like how your parents are like kind of a perfect module system for you. You will say something, they will just say that, okay, this will be done till tomorrow. Okay, so they will hide the complete implementation. They will not tell you that how they are going to do it. They will just tell you that tomorrow this will be done. Implementation should be hidden inside. I mean, the encapsulation, whatever we say, it should feel like a capsule, and the details should not be pouring out and not affecting the other people. Okay, so, and the second very important thing is that interface should be understandable. Okay, so the person who is like sitting on the interface, they should clearly send you the message, right? Like in this case, I told you, they'll clearly tell you that, okay, it will be done till tomorrow. Okay, so your response should not be like, okay, let's see, let's try. So the response, the interface response should be very proper, okay? It should clearly understand the message. It should clearly give the data, what is required. It should clearly even give the things like error message or exception or whatever it is, okay? So anything at the interface is very much understandable. And interface designers are, I mean, they should really know each and every part to make it much understandable. The third very important thing is loose coupling, right? So all the deployment units should be like totally loosely coupled. Okay, so just 1 second. Okay. So the deployment unit should not be messing up with each other. It is not like, oh, I am dependent on that deployment unit, and that deployment unit will say that we are dependent on that deployment unit. No, not a good idea. Okay. So as much as you are loose coupled, that much it is good. I understand that many times it is not possible to kind of make a loose coupling. Like if you are the last guy who is connecting to the database and you need to get some information from the database and database is up or down. I mean, you need to have some kind of tight coupling, but other deployment units should be loose coupled, right? And it all used to be a very good paradigm till like few years before, but now these things are part of your performance. Okay, so more the loose coupled your module systems will be, or your code will be, you know, you can have a much better like kind of a stateless architecture, right? And those kind of even stateful architectures can be loose coupled, and they clearly say that the performance boost, or you can say that the scaling of the application, right? The scaling of the application can be totally done. Okay, so a stateless unit, right? It can be scaled up to n, where n is infinity. Whereas a stateful application cannot be scaled, right? After that, doesn't matter that whatever power you are putting, whatever CPU utilization you are putting, how many servers you are adding to it, it has a limit, right? And the limit is that it has a lot of IO blocks, it has a lot of other blocks, right? So threads or whatever the underlying architecture, that they cannot behave it so well. Okay. And since your deployment units are loosely coupled, last point becomes very obvious, that requirements can be easily discoverable. Okay. So requirements in terms of the work and in terms of responsibility, both need to be easily discovered. Okay. If there is a problem, right? And that is the problem when you don't have a loose coupling. Say the two teams are like sharing some work. You must have seen that. They will tell, no, this is not my work. The second party will say, no, why you are thinking that this is my work, right? So you will not able to discover the responsibility, and you will not able to even discover the requirements. Okay, because it is so much messed up. So mini modules like microservices, what we define now, I mean, these words keep changing over the decade. Okay, and try to make it as modular as not. And I will not say that your application need to be completely modular, but where your application is not modular, you need to understand that these are my area of concern, and I should have keep looking on all these areas where the modularity is not there. Okay. So I hope this is just theory and GAN kind of thing. So no need for any break here. We will take a break after. So yeah, why we need modularity in Java? Again, because you see that from the monolithic applications, we started coming into the modular application, and now we started coming onto the microservice application. Okay, maybe tomorrow some nano service can be word that can be tossed. Okay, so we don't know what kind of word will be tossed. So the Java modularity is required for a strong encapsulation. And you can do as per the requirements binary, right? So if I have to ship a binary, it should be shipped whatever we need it from that. Okay, a small device, cloud device, container device, the modularity is must actually. Okay, so if your application is really doing a work of say 5 MB or 10 MB at the runtime, you cannot just take a cloud or a storage space of 1 GB and you will say like, okay, I will keep doing. Maybe if your management is unaware of what a cloud is, they will let you do. But if they are very much aware of how the cloud environment works, they will throw out you from the job next day only. No excuses. Okay. And one more important thing is that slowly we have moved to a paradigm called compile time resolution, right? So we were somewhere on the compile time resolution, and then the fancy thing of the runtime resolution started coming, and then we started understanding that runtime bulkiness is not good. Okay, runtime CPU utilization, runtime RAM utilization, runtime memory utilization is not that good, and try to resolve as much thing as possible at the compile time. Okay, so at the rate null pointer is much better than having a null pointer exception at the code level, right? So that is how the things can be understood. Okay, and many more things which probably we will discuss out throughout the presentation. Okay, so JDK9 came after like 3 years after JDK8. I am not remembering the date now, but it is somewhere 2017. I mean, when the presentation is, and JDK8 was somewhere like March 2014. So it's a massive disruptive change into the complete Java ecosystem. Okay, and Java used to be a very good, like in the backward compatibility and everything, and things were very smooth. But with Project Jigsaw, like there was little bit of shakiness into the application and through the framework, and like a lot of people were very much concerned, right? But as they started accumulating the knowledge of Jigsaw or the knowledge of module JDK, they understood that okay, this is the way to proceed into the future, right? So I will say very well connected with the time, like when the cloud and microservices become very important into the market, and the Project Jigsaw, right? So suddenly like say like even I consider JDK itself, right? So there are a huge amount of part of JDK which is used by less than say like less than 0.1% of the people, right? So currently what happens that you are carrying all those APIs, all those binaries, all those jar files with the JDK module system, which probably say like if there is a AWT or Swing, which generally help you making the UI in Java, and you are completely using Java on the server side, and you are not making any UI or any client application, that system is no more useful for you. Okay, you can definitely tell that why I am wasting my cloud storage, or I am making my CPU runtime utilization higher because of those things which I am not using into the code, right? So makes sense. So a lot of JEPs came into Java, that is the modular JDK. So first of all, JDK itself became modular. Then we introduced the module system for other people to become modular. Then you have the modular runtime images. We will see the we will see the demo of each and everything. Okay. Then we have seen that how we'll encapsulate some most internal APIs, because internal APIs were somewhere into the risk in the complete module system. And then we will see how the JLink and 2-3 other tools like JDApps and JDApps scan, we will see how they work. Okay. So this is just the few JEPs which I have mentioned here. The JEPs numbers are much higher. Okay. So yeah, now going into the further discussion, which will be the technical part. So I will give a pause here. If you have any questions, queries, concerns, you can raise it.
How popular is the modularity? I don't see it being used in a lot of places.
Okay, that's a very good question. So how popular is the modularity? I will say it's a very good question. The amount of popularity of the module is depend upon the type of application. So people who are still living with the kind of old application, they are still just migrating the Java versions to make the application alive, which is very much true for the massive Java applications. Like, and I will not say like it is true for the serious customers. Okay, so that they have like the massive Java applications and they really don't want to change anything. Okay, for them modularity is nowhere into the place. But all the people who are working on the cutting edge technology, bleeding edge technology, working on the framework system, working on the kind of any kind of deployment unit or server application or the container kind of thing, for them the modularity is very important. So I can tell you that either it is IntelliJ or it is Eclipse or it is Apache Lucene, all these people are onto the module system very much at the place. Okay, and for them it is mandatory to have a module system. Even today I will show you that there is a problem. There is a problem that you are onto your module system, JDK is on the module system, but you are using the third party which is not into the module system, right? And there are tons of third party like that, right? Which just the jar you will keep accumulating in your -CP, right? So that is very important. So I hope that I made the answer. So framework developers, IDE developers for these module system is very important. They are onto the latest module system. And not only the module system, they most of them will be like on the JDK 14 or 15, okay? Because they want to boost all the performance which can be given to them. Okay. But say like the serious banking customers, right? So they may not be changing their application. So that's perfectly fine whenever they think of.
Yeah, Vaibhav, shall I give
Got a poll to see how many people are on do use those at least. So in mine, I'll be honest, I'm still on Java 8. I've not moved to 9 or 11.
Okay. Shall I give my answer, Vaibhav?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. So there are two sides of questions in this. How popular means how many people are using it. Unfortunately, not many people are using it. There is a valid reason to it. And how relevant it is. It's 100% relevant because consider this case earlier. For example, if you look at Elasticsearch, I don't know the internal implementations, but Elasticsearch download will take 359 MB or something like that because they bundle the entire JDK. But modular systems such as this, for Elasticsearch, it might need probably server side of Java. It can cut your overall deployment size to 50% or something like that, which means it is still relevant. Now coming to the part, why is it not so popular is because many people do not know how to migrate it properly. In order to migrate, many of your libraries are upgraded to Java 11. Many of the projects that are not upgrading their libraries regularly, probably it is difficult. Those components, you do not see modularity. But down the line, it's just my guess, it's just like who is pressing the panic button first. So down the line, it is a need for every microservices deployment that we will do. We will see the popularity increase later on. Because these kind of topics will have some breaking changes. That is just my understanding.
I think maybe when Java 8 loses its LTS,
yes,
then probably people will migrate.
Yes. And if you are starting from scratch now, it's always good to start with modularity in mind. That will safeguard the future changes.
Actually, we are starting a new microservice. So what we are getting confused here is those libraries, what Vaibhav is saying, those are not having on modularity, those Spring Boot libraries and all. So how to take care of that? Can you share your experience?
Okay, if you are using the latest version of library, I think they are considering modularity built in. They are in fact, JDK 11 compatible is what Spring promotes. The recent version of Spring Boot, the default promoted ID, promoted JDK is 11, which means they have considered modularity internally. Maybe I can check it and then I can come up with some sample of how to use modularity in Spring Boot application.
Right. So that is like the menu of the discussion today. Nothing to worry about it. Don't worry. So we are going to discuss in detail that how the third parties can be modularized in your code. So we will discuss that.
Okay.
Okay. I saw a few questions. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Anyone else?
Another thing I was looking at was like tools like Tomcat, servers like this Tomcat. Their system itself is not modularized. I don't see them breaking their things into modules. Otherwise, there are a lot many things which are unused. Okay. And it would help if Tomcat kind of the servers also break it into modules, and then I can build my own exe, okay, a link and create my own exe and use it as a server.
That's a good question, and I will explain you that how even the system is not modular, how you can use it. Okay, so I'll explain you that thing today. Okay. So just park that question for 5 minutes. Not 5 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. We will come back to that. Okay. I think Sanjay is discussing something about the CPU and the RAM. So I don't know, Sanjay, that what is the meaning. But I can tell you that into the cloud space, the things are much more complicated, right? We are under a complete stress just because few of our machines are like 30 to 40% of the CPU utilization, right? So management is like telling each and every time that why your performance of this box is so less. Can it be made to 70 to 80%, right? So people who are working into the cloud environment, they must be understanding the pressure of and why I told you the compile time resolution is that it's not about the disk space, right? Whenever you take things at the runtime, right? And when the runtime resolution is higher, that means the runtime intensity of the things are higher. So doesn't matter that you are into the PaaS or SaaS or even you are function as a service, right? So even as a function as a service, what they see you that is that what is the load you are going to put onto the processor, right? So these all are going to be costly affair, and if your organization is some good size, in the end of the day, you can see a
No,
big
Vaibhav, what I was asking that when you said, right, if the modules like Swing and etc. are there in JDK and you are using that, but in that case, you are just using the disk space, right? Because if your application is server side and if you're not using Swing modules, then those classes won't be loaded into your RAM. Those classes won't be loaded into your CPU, right? So they would be just idle there, just occupying your disk space, nothing more. Isn't that correct?
Now you are moving that complete application from disk to cloud. Okay, so they will be occupying your place into the cloud.
Yeah, there as well it would be only disk space and not
yes,
the RAM.
definitely. And the second thing is that not only that. Okay, so things like the random class file search, right? Which you know that generally it happens when you are writing a class minus CP, right? So the amount of search is required for a small module system, and the amount of search required for a big thing like the complete bulky, right? You can understand the time in that. Okay. Yeah. A
so
small device
plus scanning for classes.
Yes. A lot of things like this on the runtime. Okay. So small devices are not in Java. That's a very underestimated term. So I can tell you that if you have 5 credit card in your pocket, I can give you a Java device. You can put your credit card and see. I mean, I think almost every credit card on this world, maybe 80 to 90% of that will have Java embedded into their device. Okay, so just don't get confused with J2ME. J2ME was for the mobile application development, but embedded Java is still very much. Okay.
So yes. Which version does it run?
Embedded Java is the development of embedded Java go parallel with the development of JDK, but they both have a different line, right? Why the lines are different? Because embedded Java will not have a lot of things. Okay, like they will not have a lot of garbage collectors, but they will have something like JIT compiler. Okay, so the features keep moving front and back from the JDK to embedded Java, and mostly from embedded Java to JDK. Okay. So we do complete analysis and complete testing of embedded Java as well. Okay, and even there is a one blocker in embedded Java, like it's a big block, right? And then you can think like we check thousands of devices. We check like Android, Windows Surface, all the iPhones, everything uses Java. Okay, and so then we do Java smart card, small device checking, smart card checking, a lot of things actually we do that. Okay, so J2ME and IoT, yes, IoT still uses a lot of Java. So your IoT modems and all the IoT processing unit, very good amount of Java. Raspberry Pipes use Java. So a lot of, they deploy on the Raspberry Pi. So okay. Fine. I'll come back into the more questions. Okay, so just hold on. I think few of the questions that has been raised are present into the slide. Okay, so moving ahead. So where we were, okay, we were just saw the JEPs that are related to the project Jigsaw. Okay, so first I will take you through the path of that, how Java looks into the JDK itself, how project Jigsaw looks into the JDK itself, right? So this is the graph generated on JDK 8B48, and it is, you can understand that this is a code review of OpenJDK. Okay, so this is how the JDK 8 graph looks like. This is how the things are connected into JDK 8. Okay, so let me explain you this. Okay, that was a joke. So there is nothing to explain in this. You can understand it's too clumsy, and there were a lot of places where we were creating the cyclic dependencies. Okay, And we were coming to a module system where we are telling people to that have a good module system, don't have cyclic dependency, have a much cleaner graph, but this is how the JDK8 was looking like. Okay. In fact, the point is that till the time JDK8 has something called compact APIs, which I think I should discuss before discussing the module system. I'll come out to that. And this is how the modules started looking like after Project Jigsaw, right? So though it is like on the module level now, but there is no cyclic dependency. The graphs are completely clean. And I can show you very similar graph with the tools like with IntelliJ. Today I will demo you that, where you can see that how the module graph looks like into the tools like IntelliJ. And I'm not sure that Eclipse have that or not. But I am really not a tool dependent guy. So I have all the JDK tools installed in my, I mean, no, everything is free, right? So what is wrong in that? Yeah, so before going into the details of modularity, where I will discuss about the accessibility and readability, I can, let me go to the internet and compact profiles in JDK8. Okay, sorry, I think I missed to cover this into, okay. So compact profile was again a very interesting thing that came for things like embedded device, where before going to the modular JDK, so let me explain you into the nutshell. In the nutshell, what is the Jigsaw or modular JDK is like, if your application is using something like A, B, and C, and not from D to Z, we are in a position to create a binary where we will only take the A, B, and C from the complete Java, and then your application, and we will create an application and we will say, okay, ship it. But before this thing, before like stripping down the complete application into the parts which are only required, we in the JDK8, we made something called compact profile, right? So what we did is that complete JDK broken down into 4 profiles. That is called compact 1, compact 2, compact 3, and the last is called full Java. Okay. So in the compact one, we put all the basic necessary things like the Java Lang, Java Math, Java Util. Definitely JVM is the part of all the small profile. So compact 2 will be like the superset of compact 1. So compact 2 will have something more and the compact 1. Okay. Like in the compact 2, you can see that we have added JDBC, RMIs and all. In the compact 3, there are something more. A compact 3 will be the superset of compact 2. Like, so compact 3 will have compact 2 and compact 1 inside, where you can see that some more packages has been introduced. And after whatever is into the compact 3, after that, it is kind of full Java SE, right? So you can see the things like AWT, Image.io, Swing, Corba library. These are all into the full Java SE. Now, say like you are just using compact 1 profile, right, in your complete application. You are not going anything other than say like concurrency and math util and collections. So in the JDK8 also, you have the feature where you will say that just make the JDK compact 1. Okay, so it will drastically reduce your size. I think the compact 1 JDK is something like around 13 to 14 MB. It will be written on this page. Okay, if you'll go up and down. It keeps changing. That's why they don't write a hard-coded value. Okay, and you can just leave with the compact 1. Okay, so so this is also kind of a modularity, but this modularity was very much limited. Okay, it was like it was only coming into the 4 flavors, which is compact 1, compact 2, compact 3. So what we started doing in our embedded device, we used to use compact 1, right? So we have the compact 1, or sometimes even the compact 2 can be there into the embedded device, but mostly we were dealing on the compact 1. So in the demo part, I will show you that how the JDK can show you that your application or whatever the application I will run, it is belonging to which compact profile. Okay. So it can clearly tell you that these modules belongs to compact 1, these modules belongs to compact 2, sorry, packages, and these packages belongs to compact 3, and your application need compact 3, means your application is using all the packages till compact 3. So in that case, I will just make compact 3 profile. I'll not make full SE, which is like quite a huge size. Okay, so these things can be done. Okay, Project Jigsaw or the modularity was much higher version of this. Okay, so this was much higher level of this. Okay, coming back to, so I think so far so good. Now we will start with a little bit of technical aspects, like how the things work. Okay, so the most important thing is that accessibility and readability has been changed. Okay, what do you mean by accessibility and readability? Accessibility and readability you used to define with the words like, you used to define with the words like called public, protected, private, package, right? So the last part remains the same, like the how the private and protected used to work, but public after JDK 9 is no more public. Okay, so let me show you into the slide. So accessibility with the pre JDK 9, right? So you used to say public, private, protected, and package structures. So now if you will see the JDK 9 and after that, how the accessibility has been changed. So now public comes into three flavor, like you can say public to everyone, or you need to say that I am public to some specific module, right? So only those modules can use me, or it is public to within a module. So only inside a module I can be public. Okay. So very much into the red word that public is no longer means accessible. Okay, which was the paradigm before. So whenever I am putting a class public, that means like anyone into the complete application can read it. Okay, it is still true if you are not onto the module system, right? So if you are coming into the modular system, then you need to tell that, okay, this is the class, this is the package. Now this package, who all can read it? Okay, so I will show you that how it works. Now, yeah, before coming to, or let me explain you this also. Accessibility of even the class loader I have explained in the previous slides also, I mean in the previous presentation also. But this kind of segregation can be done by class loader also. Okay, so if you understand the class loader concept, then it says that class name, package name, and class loader. This is how you define a uniqueness of the class, right? So it is not only the class name and the package name, but it is the class name, package name, and the class loader, right? So if C1, P1, and K1 is not equal to C1, P1, and K2, then it means these are the two different classes, right? So a class with the same name, a class with the same package can be loaded by two different class loader. There is no doubt about it. Okay. So someone can ask you that a class with the same name and with the same package, does it going to have a conflict at the runtime? Yes, if it is into the same class loader, but no, if it is getting loaded by two different class loader. So this is how the delegation model used to work with the class loader. So this kind of things, or this kind of packaging structure or accessibility, I can even bring it from the class loader. There is no doubt about it. I can stop it from the class loader, but that's a much complicated, and I have to write like tons of the class loader and lot of things. Really not worth to do it with the class loader concept. Okay, so generally how it works in the, this is a diagram I have shown even into the class loader presentation, but still. So how generally the class loader work is that when you are saying that give me the class, right? Get me the class, which is written on the top blue box. So it delegates the whole system to the class loader subsystem, right? And the class loader subsystem works onto the parent delegation model. So what parent delegation model see that it first delegates to application class loader. Application class loader don't search it. It directly delegates to extension, and extension directly delegates it to the bootstrap class loader. Bootstrap class loader have all the Java trusted class like the object class, string class, maths class, util classes, all. So first thing is that any class which you are demanding, right? It will go and it will keep look for the Java trusted class, that is the boot class. If the class is found, it will return you the class. If the class is not found, it will come to the extension class loader and it will try to figure out the class into the extension class loader. Now, even if in the extension class loader, the class is not found, it will come to the application class loader and it will try to figure it out. The class is there into the application class loader. Even if it will not able to figure out your class into the application class loader, it will return to the class loader subsystem, and class loader subsystem will say class not found exception, right? And that is definitely exception. You can handle it the way you want to handle it. Okay. So it's nothing like it's a error or it's like some kind of system problem, right? So it's just an exception, right? So in Java you can handle the exception the way you want to. Okay. So I can do the class and the accessibility segregation by the parent by the class loader system also. Okay, this is how the code is written, right? So if you are saying find a loaded class, it will keep calling the load class method again and again till it will find out the bootstrap class, right? So it's a very simple thing written. Okay, and then if it is resolved, it will just return you the resolved class. But what we did is that we want a different module system. Okay, and into the module system in the same class loader, we should be able to I will say force the accessibility, right? I mean, force the readability. I need to, the module system need to be forced. It is not like by choice or something like that. So what we started doing is that if we have a module X where the class A is there and module Y where class B or say package, inside package class is there. In the same class loader, I can say that, okay, what you can read, what you can export, what you can access, okay, all the complete things. So you cannot go beyond this. Okay, so whatever is defined, like I will show you the definition. Yeah. So what I will say is that module X requires Y. That means the first module actually requires second module. And module Y actually it exports the package P. Package P means the class B is inside the package. So module Y is saying that what I am giving you, okay, and you have to tell at the give time and you have to tell at the take time also, right? So anytime when you are defining a module, which we will do it, you have to tell that, okay, this module is giving what things, this module need what things, okay? So all those things I will show you from the code and from the UI of the IntelliJ. And then we will go into the detail of like how it works. This is a very old example. I believe that yesterday night I ran it. It was working fine. So I have created a module 1 and module 2. Module is very simple. You can go into the project and you can create modules. So module 1 say that it's into the package foo.bar and it says that just you return hello. Now the module 2 is reading this. Okay, the module 2 is reading this. And it is getting the say.hello from the module 1. Now you can see two new things. The first important thing is that now with every package level, you have to define a module info. So module foo.bar say that I requires java.base. I don't think so you have to write it, but I just for the sake of information, I told that you should understand java.base is a minimum thing which anything requires. And then it says that I am exporting foo.bar, right? So anything which is inside the foo.bar, I am exporting it. Whereas the module 2 say that this is, it requires foo.bar, right? So it is saying that I required foo.bar. Why you need required foo.bar? Because you have a say hello method which is lying here and this guy you want to use it, right? So will it run? So definitely it will run. And what is important for you to see.
What's inside that module dash info.java?
Yes, module info.java actually say that what are the accessibility you are providing. So what are the things you are exporting and what are the things you require, right? So like foo.bar don't need anything. Because if you will see the
it's a Java file but doesn't contain class.
It's a Java file, right? It's a Java file doesn't contain the class. So now you can see because of this module info file, there is something called diagrams into IntelliJ and you can see Java module system. So it will clearly, right. So precisely this is how the module system came out. Like foo1.bar1 is dependent on foo.bar and foo.bar itself is dependent on java.base. Okay, very simple, nothing complicated. Let me try to make it complicated by say like requires. Okay, I will first not write here. I will first try to go and say like I will try to create a JFrame, right? JFrame is a swing code, f equal to new jframe, anything you can write SQL query, whatever you're comfortable. So it is saying that you cannot do it, okay, cannot resolve. Now what I'll do in the module info, I should say that I requires java.desktop. Yeah, I think it is in the java.desktop. So I need it into the java.desktop API. In java.desktop API will have some dependency inside. Okay. And yeah, now you are good to go. And what it did that it imported the swing, right? So if this is not here, right? This is not here, this will not work out. As simple as that. Okay. So I told that I need this extra requirement into this module system. And I believe that, okay, foo1.bar1 need foo.bar. So now I believe the module graph should change. And it should also add java.desktop into the module graph. Yeah, you can see. Now the foo1.bar actually need foo.bar, and foo.bar just don't need java.base. It needs java.desktop. And java.desktop inside need Java data transfer, Java prefs, and Java prefs inside need java.xml, right? So you can see the complete module graph. Okay. So whatever you add your module system here, and that you can see it into the module graph. Okay. And what are the module systems available to us? These are very simple thing actually. Let me see if I can show you from the okay, let me use 15 only, because 15 is the last downloaded home thing. So Java is there. Fine. So what I will say is that I will say Java minus list modules. I think this will correct. So this will list you all the modules that are existing into the JDK system itself. Okay. And I personally feel that there is something called describe module minus help. Just 1 second. Describe minus D or describe module. Okay, minus D is good way to. So I can say Java describe module and say like java.desktop, right? So it should match with whatever the thing we are seeing here. Okay, java.desktop contains a lot of things, but where it is. So, okay, so it exports Java applet. It exports 1000 thing, right? So in the out of all exports, what we have used it that we took a swing JFrame, right? So it can define that, right? So say like try to get some simple stuff. Okay, these are all big things. Okay. So this is how you can describe the complete module system. Okay, so it will tell you whatever the content. There are different, names or different qualifiers. You can just use it. Okay. Module system or the module, you can use it from the code itself also. That is called something called add module, remove module. A lot of things are available even from the code side. Okay. So,
Vaibhav?
Please go ahead.
Vaibhav, what if both the modules have same package name?
If both the modules have same package name and it is getting loaded, same package name is perfectly fine. You are saying exporting the package, right? It should be fine. I mean, till the class can be resolved, it's fine. This is what my guess.
Can we check it quickly? In module 2, can we make it foo.bar instead of foo1.bar1?
In this,
I think 2 modules with same package name is not legal.
2 module with same package name is not legal. Package name,
It's
no,
like
no,
you're trying
no,
to distribute one package into 2 modules, and that's not allowed.
Okay, I'll check it out. Just hold on. Okay, so I'll. Okay, so yeah.
Can you just rename the package and see if it works?
Here, you want to check into the module 2.
Yeah.
So this you want to make it foo.bar, right? And let's not take this. So this is module foo.bar, and this is also module foo.bar, right? So at least I know that you should remove this. Sorry.
Package should be also foo.bar.
Package should be also foo.bar. Okay, so this should tell you that does not corresponds to file path foo and this right. Now what this guy is saying, this import, say like we are not looking for any kind of import right now, and we are not looking any kind of code also right now, so just hello is good enough. Okay, so yeah, looks like system is working, right? Is it not so? And I think you should be able to run it also.
Create the graph.
Create the graph, because you are not dependent now, right? You are not dependent. So if you will say required foo.bar, then you are in a problem, right? Because it will tell you whatever cyclic dependency, because it has the same name.
If you create another package and then try to make require,
What requires?
Create another module and over there mention require foo.bar. So which module will it import?
Yeah, we will do all those things. Okay, since we have to hail into more longer distance, so I know that these are all interesting questions, and I will tell you frankly that I don't have even answer of all those questions, because it need all kind of tricky things. You know, typical inheritance tricky things. So what we will do, we will hold on this work, and after the call, me and you will sit and we will do this work. Okay.
One question I was having, when you take a dependency on a module, can you define specific subset of packages? So that I don't want, because like you just showed, java.desktop can have thousands of packages. Maybe I don't need all of that. So if I'm using maybe 1 or 2 packages and they internally have dependency on maybe some 10, 15 other packages, only those gets compiled into the application.
No, so you can only modularize the application until the module system, not onto the package level. So it can be modularized at the modular level. It cannot be modularized up to the package level.
Okay. So we'll have to then maybe break up our own application into multiple modules, each which are just self-contained kind of.
Correct. That you can do. That definitely you can do. Okay, but if you are using like the base module of Java, that whatever the classes and whatever the package is inside the base module, it will come with you.
We have one question.
Please.
So if we have unnamed module, which is sitting in the class path, and if we try to generate the graph, will it show all this graph with all packages, existing dependency packages?
So the graph, actually, you must have seen the graph. So graph actually tells you the module name, not the package name. Okay. So currently you have seen the graph. Okay. There is the foo.bar is fine. Okay, because that is where your code starts. So rest all the downside things like Java desktop, Java base, these are the modules. Okay, they are not the packages. Okay, so if you have unnamed module, anyway, hold on your question. Let people come on to the unnamed module. Guys, I know you guys know everything. Just hold on. Okay, so for the readers, we have seen a very simple demo right now that how the accessibility works, and even we have seen that how the SC dependency graph looks like, right? So say like java.sql package you want to define, so it will have something called module info file which say requires java.logging, and it exports java.sql. Okay, and this thing you can even check by the description, the module description. Whereas the logging graph will say that I only exports Java util log. Okay, so this is how the dependency diagram looks like. Okay, so dependency diagram is totally get read from the module info.java, which is a feature that they have added into the IntelliJ. Okay, not sure that IntelliJ public version have it or not, but I have ultimate version. At least someone gave me the free license for that.